I don't remember when I woke up. All I know is that when I opened my eyes, the room was already flooded with the pale gray light of a gloomy morning, the kind of light that makes you unsure whether to start a new day or keep hiding from it. My phone was right beside me, its screen lighting up for the third time. Oliver calling. I stared at that name. Didn't he answer? The ringing stopped. 1 second of silence. Then it lit up again. Oliver calling. I still didn't move. My throat was dry, my heart beating so slowly it felt like it was hesitating just like me. Finally, the ringing stopped altogether. No message. Nothing. Just a silence that stretched so long it made the room feel suffocating. I pulled the blanket up over my head. Today, I wasn't going to school. My name is Aiden. And if you asked me what happened, I couldn't answer right away, because nothing shattered in a single moment. Cracked little by little, quietly, slowly, until I realized. I no longer knew where I stood in my own story. I met Oliver on a day that was supposed to be nothing special. An early autumn afternoon, soft golden sunlight, leaves just beginning to turn. I arrived late to class, still holding a coffee I hadn't gotten around to drinking. The classroom door swung open, and I walked in while the professor had already started his lecture. "Well, you finally decided to show up," he said, making no effort to hide his sarcasm. I bowed my head in apology and quickly scanned the room for an empty seat. And then I saw him, Oliver, sitting alone in the row near the window, sunlight falling sideways across his face, highlighting every feature in a way that was almost unreasonable. Not the flawless, magazine-perfect kind of handsome, but the kind that makes you look twice. Then a third time, I walked over and sat down beside him. "Sorry," I whispered. Oliver turned, looked at me for a moment, then smiled. "It's fine," he said. "I just woke up too." His voice was lower than I'd expected. Lazy somehow, but not careless. I nodded and tried to focus on the lecture, but somehow, I could still feel his gaze occasionally drifting over me, light as a breeze, but enough to break my concentration. After class, I was about to stand up and leave. "What's your major?" I stopped, turned around. Oliver was still sitting there, one hand propped under his chin, looking at me as if the question genuinely mattered. "Psychology," I answered. He quirked the corner of his mouth. "Interesting. So can you read my thoughts?" "I'm not a wizard," I laughed. "That's a shame," Oliver said. "I've been looking for someone who could understand me without needing an explanation." That line should have just been a joke, but the way he looked at me, direct, deep, and faintly sad, made it something else entirely. I didn't reply, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. From that day on, Oliver began appearing in my life. More than was normal. At first, it was just sitting next to each other in class. Then working on group assignments together. Then those coincidental run-ins at the cafeteria, the library, the hallways. Until the days I didn't see him were the ones that felt strange. Oliver wasn't like other people. He didn't try to be interesting. He simply was. Sometimes he talked endlessly about trips he'd taken, songs he loved, strange thoughts that came to him in the middle of the night. But other times he'd go quiet for hours, just sitting there, gazing into the distance like he was somewhere else entirely. And strangely, I never found that silence uncomfortable. On the contrary, I felt drawn into a world of his own, one where it was just him and me. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? One evening, Oliver asked me that. We were lying on the grass behind the dormitory, looking up at a sky full of stars. "I think everyone feels that way at some point," I said. Oliver shook his head slightly. "No, I mean, like everything has already been decided. Family, expectations, the future, and you're just playing a role." I turned to look at him. The wind stirred softly, ruffling his blonde hair. "So what do you want?" I asked. A pause. Then very quietly, "I want to be myself. Without being afraid." My heart skipped. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the way he said it. Or maybe it was because, for the first time, I felt like I understood him better than I'd realized. "You don't have to be afraid around me," I said. The words were barely out before I felt a flash of recklessness. Oliver turned. The look in his eyes shifted. No longer lazy, no longer distant, but completely focused on me. Are you sure? He asked. The space between us right then was very close. Too close. I could make out every detail on his face. And for the first time, I realized this feeling wasn't simple anymore. Yeah, I said, almost in a whisper. Oliver didn't say anything more. He just looked at me, then smiled. A very small smile, but enough to make everything inside me shift out of rhythm. And perhaps it was from that moment that everything began to spiral beyond my control. My phone lit up again. This time it was a message. Oliver, Aiden. Are you avoiding me? I stared at those words. My chest tightened. My fingers trembled slightly as they touched the screen. But then, I turned it off and rolled to face the wall. Today, I wasn't going to school, because if I saw him, I wasn't sure I could keep pretending that nothing had happened. I hadn't left the bed for nearly an hour after that. Not because I was sleepy, but because I was trying to convince myself that hiding was reasonable. That just one day, and everything would settle. That the feeling from last night, the way Oliver had looked at me, that dangerously small distance between us was just a passing moment. But I knew I was lying to myself. The phone buzzed again. This time, not Oliver. It was Mason. Mason. Bro, where are you? Their essay quiz today. I closed my eyes. Right? A quiz. One piece of a normal life I was trying not to think about. I typed quickly. Me not feeling well. Taking the day off. Mason replied almost immediately. Mason. You okay? Need me to bring you anything? I looked at that message for a moment, then just replied, Me, I'm fine. I'm fine. A sentence so easy it was almost frightening. Eventually, I dragged myself out of bed. The dorm room looked like a miniature version of the chaos in my head, clothes scattered everywhere. Books left half open. An unwashed old coffee cup. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Light flooded in, bright enough to make me squint. Below, students moved in a busy stream. Laughter, the ring of bicycle bells, the sound of doors opening and closing, all the sounds of an ordinary day. A day I didn't belong to. I pressed my forehead against the glass. And then, out of some stupid habit, I picked up my phone, opened the conversation with Oliver. His last message was still there. Are you avoiding me? I scrolled up. Dozens of messages. Endless conversations. Pointless jokes. Confessions shared in the middle of the night. And those silences, where a single period was enough to understand each other. I stopped at a message from 3 days ago. Oliver. If I disappeared one day, would you come looking for me? I remembered what ID replied. Me, that sounds too much like a movie. Oliver. I'm serious. Me, yes. One word. And at the time, I hadn't thought much of it. But now, I gripped the phone tighter in my hand. The first time Oliver touched me. In a way I couldn't pretend was accidental. It was in the library. We were sitting side by side, working on an assignment. The room was so quiet you could hear the turning of pages and the sound of typing. I was reading a document when I suddenly felt a gentle pressure on my hand. I looked down. Oliver's fingers were resting on the back of my hand. Not brushing past. Not accidental. But resting there. Clearly. Deliberately. I looked up. He was watching me. Not smiling. Not saying anything. Just watching. My heart pounded so hard I was afraid the people around us could hear it. Your hand is cold, Oliver said softly. I didn't pull my hand away. I didn't say anything either. We just sat like that in a silence that stretched on, where everything became clearer than any words could be. That moment, I should have understood, but I chose not to. I left the room, not to go to class, just to stop staying in one place. The dormitory hallway was quieter than I'd expected. Most people were in class. I walked down the stairs, each step heavy. Outside, cool air touched my skin, clearing my head a little. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to move, needed to do something, anything, other than thinking about Oliver. But of course, that was impossible. I want to be myself. Without being afraid. His voice rang through my head, and then, you don't have to be afraid around me. I had said that. Promise. Or an invitation. I stopped in the middle of the path. My heart pounded. If Oliver had believed those words. Then last night, maybe he had been about to say something. Something important. And I had run before he could say it. Damn it. I ran a hand through my hair. Guilt crept in, slow but steady. I took out my phone again. Opened the conversation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Type, delete, type, delete. Finally, I wrote just one line. Me, sorry. I'm not feeling well. I looked at those words. They were true. Just not in the way Oliver would think. I took a deep breath. And hit send. Message sent. No taking it back. I stood there, staring at the screen as though it would reply instantly. But nothing happened. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. No response. My chest grew heavier. Maybe he was in class. Or maybe he understood and had decided not to wait for me anymore. That thought unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I shoved the phone in my pocket, turned around, and then I froze. Oliver was standing a few meters away, right there in the middle of the path. His gaze settled on me. Not angry, not surprised, just very still, as if he'd known I would be here. Aiden, he said. Same voice as always, but something was different. Something more serious. I swallowed. You're not in class? I asked, possibly the stupidest question I could have asked. Oliver stepped closer. Slowly. Can I ask you something? My heart quickened. Yeah. He stopped in front of me. This time not as close as last night, but not far enough for me to feel safe. Are you really avoiding me? Direct. No circling. Nowhere to hide. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because for the first time, I knew, if I lied, nothing would ever be the same again. I should have said no. Just one word. A simple denial, enough to pull us back to where we were before, where everything was still vague, still safe, still nameless. But I couldn't say it. My throat felt like it was being squeezed shut. Oliver's gaze stayed fixed on me, no pressure, no anger, just waiting, and that was precisely what made it so hard to bear. If he had been angry, it might have been easier to deal with. But instead, he was giving me the chance to be honest. A chance I wasn't sure I had the courage to take. I don't know, I finally said. A weak answer, but true. Oliver frowned slightly. You don't know? I don't know what I'm doing. I exhaled. Hands clenched inside my jacket pocket. I just need time. Silence fell between us. The wind moved through the trees nearby, carrying a few dry leaves across our feet. Oliver looked at me for a few more seconds, then nodded slowly. Okay, just one word. But not the kind of okay I'd hoped for. No relief in it. No understanding. Just acceptance. In a very distant way. How long do you need? He asked. I went still. I'm not trying to pressure you, he said, his voice still calm. I just want to know where I stand. That hit, not hard, but precisely. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. How long? I didn't know. A day? A week? Or until I was brave enough to admit what I'd been trying to avoid. I'm not sure, I said quietly. Oliver was silent. Then he smiled. Not the familiar kind, easy, slightly lazy, but a thin smile, nearly expressionless. I see. Those two words were colder than I expected. I think I misunderstood, Oliver continued. My heart stopped. Misunderstood what? He looked at me. This time, his gaze didn't look away. You. The air seemed to thicken. I felt my heart beating so hard it almost hurt. I thought you. Oliver paused, as if choosing his words. Thought you felt the same way I did. Those words landed between us. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. I knew I should say something. Anything. But my mind went blank. Because the answer. I already knew. I just had never dared to say it. Oliver waited. 2 seconds. Then he nodded. as though he received his answer even without me speaking. Yeah, he breathed. I understand now. Oliver. It's fine, he cut me off. Really. But his voice didn't sound fine at all. I think I imagined a little too much. He turned away. Just one step, but enough to pull the distance between us further than it had ever been. Oliver, wait. I grabbed his hand. Instinct. Without thinking, Oliver stopped, looked down at my hand, then looked up. His eyes this time were different. No more hope. No more waiting. Just something that was very hard to name. I don't know, I said quickly, as if speaking slowly would mean not speaking at all. I don't know what I feel. Okay? Silence. I hesitated. I've never thought about this the way you're describing. But you stayed, Oliver said. Not a question. A statement. You kept holding my hand. You kept letting me. He stopped. Took a breath. You knew exactly what you were doing. No. I pushed back, my voice rising higher than I meant. I didn't know. The words rang out in the empty space, sharp and too loud. A few people walking past glanced over. But I didn't care. I just like being around you, I said, quieter now. That's all. Oliver looked at me. For a long time. That's all? He repeated. I swallowed. Yeah. A long pause. Then Oliver gave a small nod. Okay. That word again. But this time, even colder than before, he gently withdrew his hand from mine. A simple gesture. But it felt like something was being pulled out of me at the same time. I won't make things uncomfortable for you anymore, Oliver said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Let's just say. I got it wrong. That's not it. You don't have to explain, he cut in. Seriously. He stepped back. The distance now was wide enough that I felt empty, I think. We should keep things simple. Simple. Easy word to say. But I knew what it meant. No more long evenings. No more messages in the middle of the night. No more the way he looked at me as if I were the only person in the room. Only two strangers who had once been very close. Oliver. I called his name. But this time he didn't stop. Didn't turn back. Just walked away. Slowly, but with finality. And I stood there. Didn't chase after him. Didn't hold him back. Just watched. Until he disappeared from sight. I don't remember how I made it back to my room. All I know is that when I sat down on the bed, everything around me felt muted. Phone in my hand. Screen dark. No messages. No calls. Nothing. A silence. That I had created myself. I lay back. Stared at the ceiling. The feeling was exactly like that morning. But heavier. I closed my eyes. And for the first time, I asked myself, if I had said something different, if I had been honest, would things have been different, or would I still be here, alone, on the day I had chosen not to go to school? I thought everything would stop there, that after the morning-esque conversation, we'd naturally drift apart like two parallel lines, finally acknowledging they were never really going to intersect. But I had underestimated the emptiness. It didn't crash over me all at once. It seeped in, slowly, bit by bit. That afternoon I still didn't go to class. Not because I couldn't but because I didn't want to face the possibility of seeing Oliver and discovering that he would actually keep his distance. I sat in my room, laptop open but doing nothing. A video playing half-watched on the screen. A document unfinished. A to-do list. Abandoned. Everything left incomplete. Like me. The door opened. Mason walked in. Backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. You're still here? He frowned. I thought you were really sick. I'm fine, I said without looking up. You don't look fine. I didn't answer. Mason put down his bag and came closer. What happened? Nothing. Bullshit. I sighed and finally looked up. Mason crossed his arms and leaned against the desk, eyes searching. Is it about that blonde guy? My heart jolted. I don't know what you're talking about. Right, Mason said dryly. You only spend 80% of your free time with him. I said nothing. Did you two fight? He asked. Not exactly. So something did happen. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling irritated. I don't know how to explain it. Try, Mason shrugged. I looked down at my hands. My fingers still remembered the feeling of holding Oliver's hand. Warm. And then, empty. I think. He likes me, I said slowly. Mason raised an eyebrow. And? I don't know how I feel. You don't like him? I opened my mouth. But no answer came right away. Because if it were no, I would have said so already. Mason watched me for a moment, then exhaled softer than before. Okay. So you do. It's not that simple. It never is, Mason replied. But you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. I laughed humorlessly. You don't understand. Then explain. I shook my head. I've never thought about this before. I've never liked a guy. The first time is always disorienting, Mason said easily. But that doesn't make it wrong. I tightened my fists. It's not about right or wrong. Then what is it about? I was quiet for a while, then said, I'm scared. The room fell silent. Mason didn't laugh. Didn't tease. Just asked. Scared of what? Everything, I admitted. Scared I'm reading it wrong. Scared of what other people will think. Scared that if I cross that line, I won't be able to go back. Mason nodded slowly. That makes sense. I looked up, slightly surprised. You're not going to tell me I'm overreacting? No, he shrugged. Feelings don't have an on-off switch. But running away doesn't solve anything. I laughed flatly. Yeah, I just tried that. Mason looked at me squarely. Did you hurt him? That question landed. I didn't answer. But maybe I didn't need to. Mason sighed. Then the question isn't, do you like him anymore? I frowned. Then what is it? Whether you have the courage to be honest with yourself. I looked at him, said nothing, because for the first time, I knew the answer, and it wasn't a comfortable one. That evening I went outside. Not to go anywhere in particular. Just. I didn't want to be in the room anymore. The campus at night was quieter. Street lamps glowing, golden light stretching across the paths. The wind colder than it had been that morning. I buried my hands in my jacket pockets and walked slowly, and then I realized I was heading toward the grass behind the dormitory, where we used to lie and talk, where Oliver had said, I want to be myself. Without being afraid, I stopped, looked around. Empty. Of course it was empty. I gave a quiet laugh. What was I expecting? I sat down. The grass was slightly damp, cold seeping through my jeans. I lay back, looked up at the sky. Fewer stars than before. Just a few faint points of light. Like what remains. I closed my eyes and let the memories come. The way he smiled. The way he looked at me. The way he touched my hand. As though it were the most natural thing in the world. And the way I reacted. Didn't pull away. Didn't refuse. But didn't dare move closer either. Halfway. Always halfway. Damn it. I whispered. Maybe Mason was right. It wasn't just fear. I was hiding. Hiding from something I knew clearly existed, something I had felt. From the very beginning. I opened my eyes. Sat up. Heart beating faster. If I kept going like this, I would lose him. Not maybe, but certainly. I took out my phone. Opened the conversation. No new messages. I stared at the name Oliver for a long time, then pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. I thought you needed time. His voice came through. On the other end of the line. My heart stopped. Oliver, I didn't know where to start. Is something wrong? He asked. Calm, but distant. I took a deep breath. Can we talk? A brief pause. Then, we already talked. Not like this, I said quickly. I mean, actually talk. Honestly. Silence. This time longer. I heard the sound of wind on his end. Maybe he was outside too. Where are you? Oliver asked. The grass behind the dormitory. 1 second. 2 seconds. I'll come. The call ended. I stared at the screen. Heart pounding. There was no going back now. This time, I wouldn't run. I don't remember when I stood up. I only know that by the time I noticed, I had already walked several loops around the grass, hands buried deep in my jacket pockets, heart beating uncomfortably fast. 10 minutes, maybe less. but it felt like a full hour. Every footstep from a distance made me look up, then look back down, disappointed. Until, Aiden, that voice. I turned around. Oliver was standing a few steps away. The warm yellow light behind him left his face half-lit, half-shadowed. But I could still see clearly. The caution in his eyes. No more ease like before. No more the way he used to move toward me without a second thought. This time, he stopped, kept his distance. "I'm here," I said, as if that weren't already obvious. Oliver nodded slightly. Yeah. A pause, not like the silences between us before. No longer comfortable. No longer natural. But tense. "What did you want to say?" he asked. Straight to the point. No detours. I took a deep breath. If I didn't say it now, I never would. This morning, I lied. Oliver didn't react right away. Just looked at me, waiting. It wasn't that I didn't know, I continued. I just didn't dare say it. A gust of wind passed through, leaves rustling in the trees. Oliver tilted his head slightly. Didn't dare say what? That question. Simple. But it made my heart beat harder than anything else could. I looked at him, directly, without looking away. "That I like you." The world seemed to stop. No wind, no sound around us. Just those words hanging in the air. And a strange feeling of lightness. Oliver didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stood there. His eyes shifted very slightly. But I saw it. Saw it clearly. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice lower. "I like you," I said again. Not as a friend. This time I didn't tremble. Didn't look away. Just said it. The truth. Oliver exhaled. As though he'd been holding his breath for a very long time. "Then why this morning?" I was scared, I cut in. I never felt this way before. I didn't know what to do with it. He looked at me. "And now you do?" I shook my head slightly. "No. But I know one thing." I stepped closer. Slowly. Not forcing anything. Just closing the gap. "I don't want to lose you." A simple sentence. But true. Oliver looked down, then back up. The distance between us was now only one step. "You think just saying that is enough?" he asked. Not harsh. But not easy either. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I want to try." A pause. This time. Not heavy like before. More like a moment waiting for a decision. Oliver took a step forward. Now, we were standing very close. I could make out every detail on his face, including the weariness that I hadn't noticed before. "You confuse me, you know that," Oliver said softly. "I know. I'm not good at things that are only halfway." "Neither am I," I replied. He smiled faintly, for the first time since that morning. A real smile, but still cautious. "Are you sure?" Oliver asked. "No," I said plainly. "But I'm sure of one thing, I want to be with you." 1 beat, 2 beats. Then, Oliver raised his hand and touched my face. Gently, slowly, as if checking that I wouldn't vanish. I didn't pull away. Didn't step back. Just stood there. Let him touch me. "You drive me crazy," Oliver whispered. "Doesn't sound like a compliment?" "It's not." I smiled slightly. And then, neither of us said anything more. The last of the distance between us simply disappeared. Oliver drew me closer. Without rush. Without force. Just enough for me to feel. His warmth. His heartbeat. His breath. And then, he kissed me. Not the explosive kind you see in films. But slow. Uncertain. Like a question. I froze for 1 second. Just one. Then I kissed him back. Not perfectly. Not smoothly. But honestly. Everything around us faded. No more grass. No more street lamps. Only. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke right away. We just stood there. Very close. "So, what are we doing?" I asked quietly. Oliver smiled. More clearly this time. "I think we're starting something." "Starting what?" He looked at me, his eyes warmer now, but still holding a touch of caution. "Something not simple." I nodded. "Sounds about right." A pause. But this time, not uncomfortable, not heavy, just peaceful. "Are you going to school tomorrow?" Oliver asked. I smiled slightly. Probably. He raised an eyebrow. Probably? I've already taken a day off, I shrugged. I can't stay away forever. Oliver nodded. Yeah. He stepped back a little. Not far, but enough to see me more clearly. Will we be okay? I asked. A question I wasn't sure I wanted answered. Oliver thought for a moment, then said, I don't know. My heart caught. But he continued, but I want to try. I exhaled, lighter than before. Then that's enough. Oliver smiled. And this time, I wasn't scared anymore. Not completely, but enough. Not to run. That night when I lay in bed, I no longer stared at the ceiling with that hollow feeling from the morning. There were still many things unresolved. Still many things that made me anxious. But for the first time, I felt like I was moving forward. Not running away, but facing it. And tomorrow, I would go to school. Not because I had to, but because there was someone there I wanted to see.